Hey guys, Augiesaint here and welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I want to cover all of the unique weapons we know about going into the first Descendants. The launch will be pretty soon on the 2nd of July. It's going to be like 3 o'clock in the morning for me. I can't wait to jump into it head first. I will be streaming over at twitch.tv/Augiesaint. So drop on by, drop a follow and be ready to grind it out. I'm really excited to get into the first Descendants. But without further ado, let's just go ahead and cover all the unique weapons we know about. Mainly their traits. We're not going to cover their stats too much, as we're just going to be focusing on all the traits, just to give you guys a little bit of an insight of what there is. So let's hop on to the first one, a machine gun, Albion Cavalry gun. This gun actually looks pretty cool. Let's have a look at the perk. Cavalry. On hitting a stunned enemy, increases attack and applies the effect to the attack. When achieving a critical hit on a stunned enemy, there's a set chance to inflict stun on that enemy. So it seems like this weapon is going to be all about stunning, and it is a machine gun, so it should have a lot of rounds in the magazine. Just go ahead and crowd control large groups of enemies. I believe there is a mod on Kyle where one of his abilities does stun, so that should be an easy way to actually stun and continuously stun with this weapon, because it does seem like you need to have a stunned enemy first before you can actually activate this effect. So really interesting crowd control type weapon overall. Let's move on to the next one. We have the Afterglow Sword. Now this is one of the best sniper rifles for using on the intercept void battles due to its perk, the Nightmare Reaper. On hitting a enemy's weak point, inflicts the unique ability Death Propagation. On hitting an enemy commander or colossi, increases firearm critical hit rate and apply the effect to the attack. So if we have a look at what Death Propagation does, the duration is 5 seconds, stacks up to 6, reload speed, you get increased reload speed, you get increased weak point damage, and you get reload speed per stack increasing as well, and weak point damage per stack. Obviously this does have a max stack of 6, so as you can see, this thing is going to be really strong for them, so you're going to really want to invest into this for your void intercept battles. And then moving on to the next one, we have the Blue Beetle. Now this is a scout rifle with the perk Arcane Wave. When using a fusion skill, grants self unique ability Arcane Energy with a set chance. When using a singular skill, grants self the unique ability Purification with a set chance. Now you can see over there the basic information: skill cost Arcane Energy, trigger rate 45% chance to trigger, duration, skill critical hit rate, so it will make your skills critical hits go up. And this could be really strong on Bunny, as this Arcane Energy is going to make your skills critical hit rate increase. It lasts for 40 seconds and has a 45% chance to proc. I believe Bunny's 3 skills, so like the big AoE around her, is fusion damage. So if it is, then this could be very strong on Bunny. Let's see, Purification, same thing again, duration 1 second, and it removes debuffs. So you could just get like an instantly removing debuffs off you when you do singular damage. I don't believe that Bunny does any singular. I think it is all fusion and tech. So this thing could actually end up being very strong on Bunny. I can't wait to test it out once we actually do get in the game. Then moving on to the next one, we have the beam rifle, the Clairvoyance. Hitting an enemy with the stage 2 beam inflicts void gaze on the target. Hitting the enemy with a stage 3 beam inflicts appalled calling on the target. The effect is considered to be the same effect as frostbite in some modes. Beam rifle charge, increasing speed. We have the void gaze duration, skill defense. Okay, so the enemies will be more susceptible to skills is what I'm understanding there. And then the other one is action speed -70, so they should be slower as well, so they'll be slowed with defense down. If that is how this actually works, then the Clairvoyance is going to be a very strong weapon, especially for void intercepts. I believe there was some glitch with Clay in one of the betas where you could actually use this on bosses, and there was some like reload trick where it just infinitely keeps shooting and instantly deal like a lot of damage, but they have since patched that. So just keep your eye on the Clairvoyance. Definitely going to be a really strong debuffing weapon to have in your toolkit. And then moving on to the Divine Punishment Assault Rifle. Granting a buff to allies excludes yourself will grant the unique ability Meditation to yourself. Recovering an ally's HP, shield, MP resource excluding yourself will grant the unique ability Praise to yourself. Inflicting a debuff on an enemy will grant you the unique ability Glory to yourself. So these all do different abilities, and unfortunately we don't have all of them available there to see. But having a look at Meditation, max stacks 3, defense, and defense per stack. So just going to increase your defense, and to get this is by granting a buff to allies. So not yourself, you will grant a unique ability. So you'll get increased defense by granting buffs to your allies, not buffing yourself. And then getting praise over there, we can't actually see what that does unfortunately, but you actually get this praise by recovering an ally's HP, shields, MP resources excluding yourself. So most of these things is by doing it to your allies. So this seems to be overall like a support type weapon, which will probably be really useful on Jade Bear or the other 2 supports. I forgot their names right now, but one of them deals with healing and the other one deals with like refunding ammo and shields. So that will actually be really strong on them, I believe, once we can see what this actually applies to us, but unfortunately we can't actually see in this pick. Then moving on, we have the Executor shotgun. On hitting an enemy with all the bullets, grants the unique ability Executioner's Exaltation. If all the fired bullets do not hit enemies with the effect is active, decreases the effect stage by 1. At the higher stage, firing a shot removes the effect regardless of whether it hits a target or not. At the higher stage, increases firearm attack on hits and inflicts electrocution on the target enemy. On hitting an electrocuted enemy, increases firearm attack and applies this buff to the attack. So this one's pretty complicated. Let's have a look there what the thing actually does. Duration 5 seconds, max stacks +5, accuracy actually goes 10, so that could get to 50% accuracy. I wonder if that would turn this into more like a slug gun instead of like a wide spreading shotgun. Would be interesting to see how this actually works. And also if this electrocution does count for enemies electrocuted by Bunny's abilities. Have to see how that all pans out, but overall I don't think it's the greatest weapon, but could surprise us and could be a really good boss killer if this actually works. And then moving on, we have the machine gun Enduring Legacy. It has the effect on hitting an enemy, increases status effect trigger rate corresponding to the element, and inflicts the unique ability Quenching to the target enemy. On hitting a burn enemy, increases firearm attack and applies this buff to the attack. So have a look over there. Quenching, duration, it goes up to 30 stacks. It reduces fire resistance and fire resistance per stack. Okay, that seems pretty interesting. On hitting an enemy inflicted with burn, your firearm attack is +5%. And does this count as quenching? So this stacks up really high. Okay, this could be a really strong weapon on somebody like Blair, for example, because he does burn everything. And maybe this actually corresponds with the rest of it. It does say with all these elements, but then on the bottom, yeah, the quenching seems to only really work on fire. So I'm going to assume maybe we can see more that we can't see in this picture, and it actually does do it with all the elements, but if it doesn't, then we're just going to have to assume that it is only for fire damage. So this is probably going to be the best weapon to use with Blair. Okay, and then we'll move on to the Assault Rifle, the Fallen Hope. On hitting a poison enemy, increases the firearm attack and applies this buff to the attack. On defeating a poison enemy, the defeated enemy will trigger an explosion with a certain chance, inflicting additional damage to nearby enemies. Inflicts poison on enemies damaged by this explosion. So we have a look down here. On hitting a poison enemy, firearm attack is +10%. Explosion trigger rate 30% and has a 4-meter radius and additional damage of 60%. And the poison duration is 5 seconds with a damage interval of 2.5, so it will tick twice during the poison application. This is going to be the best weapon to use on Freyna, as Freyna really deals with all the different types of poisons. And she does get, I believe she does increase damage to enemies that are poison. So that should scale all of the poison damage with her. This is just going to be Freya's weapon to look out for. So anybody that really likes Freyna, Fallen Hope is going to be the weapon you want to use on her. And then moving on to the handgun, the final masterpiece. After reloading, grants one of 3 unique abilities at random. If the granted effect is the same as the existing effect, the effect stage is increased. If it is different effect is granted, the effect stage is reset to stage 1. So after reloading, you can get any of these 3 different things via Superb Performance, Beautiful Appearance, or Awesome Feature. We have a look what those actually do. Will give you weak point damage, and then Beautiful Appearance will actually give you firearm crit rate, it seems. And then we can't actually see the Awesome Feature in the picture, but by looking at the picture, that does look like a fire rate mod, so I'm going to assume it gives you fire rate on that effect there. So overall, it's just going to be a pistol that gives you increased weak point damage, firearm crit rate, or weapon speed like fire rate. That's going to switch between them, and if you get the same one twice in a row, will make it a little bit stronger. So we'll definitely have to see how this turns out and see maybe we can use it on somebody like Lay with infinite reload. So if you get like the buff that you really like, maybe stack up the weak point to level 3, and then you activate the Glee buff where she doesn't consume ammo, and you just keep shooting with it with all of that increased damage. And then moving on to the tactical rifle, Greg's Reversed Fate. On hitting an enemy with max shields, procs bombardment on the enemy's location with a set chance. Inflicts burn on enemies hit by bombardment. So if we have a look what bombardment does, trigger rate 30% and has a 3-meter radius. Bombardment count 3 additional damage, firearm damage times 150, so 1.5 of your firearm damage. It's probably just going to be a little, bombardment. It says it all over there. There's going to be like a little explosion around the enemy. And then it also affects them with burn duration of 3 seconds and 1 second damage interval. So it will tick 3 times on them, with the additional damage coming off 30% of your firearm's weapon damage. So it could be another interesting weapon paired with somebody like Blair, for example, or pretty much anybody else as it doesn't really do anything to scale fire damage, it just gives them a little burning dot. And then moving on to the beam rifle Kinsguards Lance. Aiming activates preview mode. When cancelling the aim, deactivates preview mode. When firing while aiming, deploys the unique ability Guardian Lance on the terrain and consumes a set amount of ammo upon deployment. The deployed Guardian Lance lasts for a set amount of time. Hitting the Guardian Lance deals damage to nearby enemies. Each time the deployed Guardian Lance is hit, the duration and range are slightly increased. So this seems like an interesting thing. You shoot the ground or something, deploys a lance, and you keep shooting the lance and it increases its AoE. Maybe pulsating out a little bit of damage. So we have a read down here, Guardian Lance. Ammo cost installation, so I guess it costs you 6 shots to fire one of these lances. Lasts for 3 seconds. Duration increase upon hit, 0.1 seconds. So you got to really start shooting this quite a lot. It is a beam rifle though, so that could potentially like just be, you can just instantly beam at this thing and increase it. Max duration only up to 6 seconds. AoE damage, firearm damage times 11%. That's actually a pretty small amount of damage there, and the damage interval, well, the damage interval is actually really fast. So if you take that, it's like going to proc like 6 times per second because it's 0.1 milliseconds. So that could be a lot of damage actually. Have to see how this works once you scale it all up and see what happens with it. And then moving on to the last Dagger handgun. Defeating an enemy grants patience. On hitting an enemy while at max tax, fires enhanced rounds. On hitting an enemy with enhanced rounds, the patience effect is reset and the enemy is stunned. Okay, so let's have a look at what the patience does. It lasts for 10 seconds, max taps up to 5. Firearm crit hit rate +2, crit hit rate per stack +2, crit hit rate at max stacks +12, and firearm attack at max stacks +30. And this is going to stack up to 5 times, so times that all by 5. So it's just going to get a really strong handgun with high crit and firearm attack, maxing out with the duration of the stun at the end of it. So I believe it'll like stack up on enemies, and then once it reaches the max, it's going to hit them with the stun effect and then start building up again. So that seems to be a really interesting handgun. I have to see how that all plays out. Then moving on to another handgun, we have the Nazeistras Devotion. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but that's what we're going with. On hitting an enemy's weak point, inflicts the unique ability Devotion mark on the target enemy. On hitting an ally, the ally's shield is restored at the cost of your MP. If your current MP is less than the MP cost, this effect is not triggered. So let's have a look at what this Devotion mark does. Duration, 3 seconds, defense -30%. That is actually pretty huge, as this is another way to debuff enemies. You have that with Viesa, so you get like another 30% damage defense down. I wonder if those will stack and scale together. They will just make the bosses take so much more damage from all your damage dealers out there, like a Glee with like a Afterglow Sword or something, and just eat away at intercept. So this actually seems to be like a very strong support type weapon. I can't wait to get my hands on this and see what kind of damage we can actually do with the defense down on bosses. And then moving over to the submachine gun, the Python. On hitting an enemy's weak point, inflicts the unique ability Prey on the target enemy. Okay, that's very simple. Let's have a look at what Prey actually does. Lasts 1 second, stacks up to 20. Defense down again by 10%. Okay, toxin resistance down by 10%. Defense per stack down by 1%, and toxin resistance down by... Okay, so this could actually potentially turn into the ultimate boss killing weapon with Freyna, because Freyna does more damage to poison targets, and then obviously the toxin resistance, she does poison them as well. So this could actually turn out to be a really giga boss killer on Freyna, even any other of the Descendants, because it does have defense down, stacking up to 20%. That's quite a lot of defense down if you add that on top of all the other defense downs in the game. So I think this could be a very strong main DPS weapon, as well as like a support type defense down weapon on quite a few Descendants. And then we have a look at the Penetrator hand cannon. On hitting a weak point, inflicts damage to the enemy's shield proportional to their max shield at a set chance. The higher the firearm level, the closer this damage reaches the max limit. When damage dealt to the enemy completely depletes the target's enemy shields, inflicts stun with a set chance. So it just seems like it's do quite a bit of damage to their shields, max damage. This could actually be really helpful because the Colossi down the bottom here, the intercept battles do actually have quite a lot of shield before you actually get to their health bar. So I'd love to see how this all scales and if it does actually do quite a bit of damage to the shields. And then let's move on to the Piercing Light Sniper Rifle. On hitting a weak point, inflicts Dispel on the enemy with a set chance. When 2 or more enemies are hit by a single shot, there's a high chance to land a critical hit on the enemies while also increasing critical hit damage and applying this buff to the attack. Okay, so 2 birds, 1 stone seems to be a pretty cool thing of there. The spell trigger rate 30%, duration 1 second, and it removes a buff. Upon piercing 2 or more targets, the firearm critical rate plus 100% and firearm crit hit damage plus 60%. This could actually be really strong. I can already see gimmicky videos coming up of people doing like crazy amounts of damage by building this up really strong on a glee or something, and then actually shooting through like the little mobs in the Void Intercept battles, because a lot of the Void Intercept battles, they do all spawn these little mobs just as like an ammo way to get ammo and energy and all those kind of drops. So you could shoot through the mob into the boss and then increase your firearm crit hit rate. It's going to be very gimmicky, but it could be really strong if you manage to line up the shot pretty good. And then it does have this spell of you have to remove a buff. So there will be some specific Void Intercepts where the bosses actually buff themselves and stuff like that. So this will then be used to remove those buffs. And then moving on to the restored Relic rocket launcher. Fires a guided round with a set chance. On hitting an enemy with a guided round, inflicts ancient fire to the target enemy with a set chance. So if you look at the guided round, it has a 60% chance to proc. And the ancient fire lasts for 3 seconds, damage interval of 0.5 seconds, so it's going to tick 6 times in one duration. That's actually pretty strong. And the additional damage will be firearm damage times 10%. So it's not going to be a lot of damage, but it will add up because maybe that will stack once you start like stacking duration. So pretty interesting, but overall pretty underwhelming. And then we move on to the tactical rifle, the Secret Garden. When using a dimension skill, recovers custom resource with a set chance. When using a tech skill, grants the unique ability Pest Control with a set chance. Let's have a look at what these all do. Upon using Dimension Skill, trigger rate 30%, custom resource recovery plus 10%. And then the Pest Control has a 30% trigger rate with a duration of 5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. And this will give you firearm attack, skill power, firearm attack per stack, and firearm power per stack. Okay, this is actually a really good buff. Pest Control, and it is a tactical rifle, so it could do quite a bit of damage. And to proc Pest Control, you need to use a tech skill. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Tech skills, I believe Bunny's Lightning may be a tech skill as well, so that could actually work on Bunny. You use Bunny's skills like AoE to kill all the mobs, and then once you get to like a boss or something, switch over to this, you'll have this all buffed up and unload on the boss. And then let's move over to the shotgun Smithereens. On hitting an enemy with all bullets, increases the firearm's critical hit rate and firearm critical hit damage of the attack. Upon landing a critical hit on an enemy, grants the firearm unique ability amplification. So if we have a look here, on landing all bullets, you get a 100% increased fire crit hit rate, so it'll be 100% crit hit, and then 5% crit hit damage. Amplification will give you increased shells, so 2 extra shots. This could actually be a very high contender for like a good boss killer if you do manage to get in really close and land all your shots. Maybe with someone tanky like Kyle or Ajax, you could get in there, drop your shield on Ajax so you get the damage buff, and then just go to town on the boss. So this could essentially be very strong boss killer. I'd love to see where this goes. And then we have the fan favorite that we've all used quite a lot through all the betas, the Thunder Cage. While defeating an enemy, the defeated enemy has a set chance to discharge electrical shockwave that deals additional damage to nearby enemies. This has a 60% proc rate, it does a damage radius of 3% and additional damage. It is 150% of your weapon damage, the little explosion, so it is really strong for like mob clearing, and pretty much turns any Descendant has weak AoE clear. Use this gun and now you have good AoE. Really strong overall weapon, good on bosses as well, as it is a SMG and the stats are pretty good on it. Very strong and reliable. Now let's move on to the Scout Rifle, the Wave of Light. After reloading, grants a unique ability Solar Halo. On hitting an enemy with Solar Halo is active, inflicts Lunar Halo on the target with a set chance. So let's have a look. Solar Halo duration 1 second, recoil -50, firearm crit hit rate. So you get 100% crit hit rate, that's insane. And the recoil, so it's easier to control it. This is a Scout Rifle after all. The Lunar Halo trigger rate is 50% with a 3% duration, and it will weaken their regeneration by 50%. Okay, so some of the bosses can actually heal. There was one of the Void Intercepts with the Toxic boss that they could actually start healing up if you didn't kill the things in time. So it'll be pretty interesting to see what other bosses might have some kind of a regen mechanic, so you can actually use this then to slow down the regen. I believe in the hard mode dungeons, there's probably going to be some modifier where all the mobs can start regenerating HP, so this might actually turn into a really powerful weapon. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully you guys found it informative. If you did, please drop a like and a sub to the channel. Helps me out so much, and I can't wait to dive into the first Descendants with all you guys. Don't forget to check out the streams over at twitch.tv/Augiesaint. I'd love to see you guys there, and I will catch you on the streams and in the next video. Take care. Augiesaint now.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the wind crying